Hello fellow gamers and welcome back to another Let's Talk Gaming video, and today we will be reviewing the Logitech G502 Proteus Spectrum Gaming Mouse. And if you want to know if this RGB tunable gaming mouse is something worth adding to your setup, then please stay tuned for more. Okay, let's start with the first thing and let's do some unboxing of the Logitech G502 Proteus Spectrum and see what's actually inside the box. In the box we did not only find the mouse itself, but we also found this little box here with some weights in it. You might be wondering what the weights are for. Well, you can open up the bottom part of the mouse and there you can add weights as you see fit to make the mouse a little bit heavier or adjust the balance of the mouse. In the little case you can find 5 3.6 gram weights which you can add to the mouse to customize the balance and the weights to your own needs. Okay, let's have a look at the Logitech gaming software, because that is the piece of software we will be using to customize some of the features of the mouse. It's exactly the same software as we used for the Logitech G910 keyboard, but this time we will be customizing the Logitech 502 Proteus Spectrum gaming mouse. And the first option we have is whether we will be using the onboard storage on the mouse to switch between one of the 3 profiles we have available on the mouse itself, or if we want to have the system automatically detect the profile corresponding to the active game or application. On the next tab we will be able to change some of the actions which are triggered by the different buttons, and we have a total combination of 11 programmable buttons here, and you can of course, depending on the active profile or active game, attach specific actions to specific buttons. For example, if we want to have the capital city view to appear when we press the forward button, then we can simply drag the corresponding action from the command section onto the button and it will be applied immediately. Now every time I press that button on the mouse itself, the capital city view will appear when I am in Civilization. Now of course you can have different profiles for different games or different applications, and the system will be switching between those profiles automatically if you have set it up that way. Using the default setup, this setup here, where we have 3 onboard profiles, you can set that up manually to trigger certain actions, but it won't recognize the games or the applications you are playing. So I prefer to switch it to the automatic game detection and continue from there. The next tab is the RGB lighting. Just as with the keyboard, you have some options here. First of all, you can select the lighting zones. You can have the logo get a certain color, or you can have the DPI switch have a certain color. You can add some effects like the breathing effects, a color cycle effect, or a fixed color. And of course, you can pick the color here on the left side of the screen using this little color wheel. The next tab in the software is a pretty important one for the gamers, so let me have a look at it. It's the tab where you can change the DPI sensitivity levels. Currently it is set up to have 4 DPI sensitivity levels, one starting at 2500, next one 3800, 4800 and a bit, and 9600. And here you can see that the red one is the one which will be used when you press the DPI shift key, and this will be the default DPI used. You can of course change that by simply clicking on it and dragging it to the location where you want. And if for example you would have this one set to 5000 and you want 5000 to be the default one, then simply click on it, click the assign default button and you're done. If you want for example this one, the second level, to be at 3600, simply drag it to 3600 or type it in. And if you would also want to assign that when you press the DPI shift button, simply click that button again. Now you can of course set it up so that you have different DPI sensitivity levels for each individual game, but then you will have to enable the enable per profile pointer settings. And now you can switch between the different games and have different DPI settings for each individual game. So currently, for example, the default profile is set up at 1200, 2400, 3200 and 6400, with the default at 3200. But if I would switch to Counter-Strike, then I can change that. For example, I can click on the highest sensitivity level and drag it all the way over to 12,000. Then the next one, have it at 6400, for example. Just simply drag it. Yep, that should be good enough. And the second one at 3000, well, let's pick 3500 and 2400 for the lowest one. Here we go. And now I can do the same thing. Assign my default, for example, to the second level. Click it, press the assign default button, and well, my shift one is set up nicely, so I can keep that one. Now, if you want to know how to switch between the different DPI settings, then let's go quickly to the actions screen so I can show you here. Below the left mouse button, you have two buttons, one for DPI up and DPI down. So up is go from sensitivity level 1 to 2, and down is from 2 to 1. And this is the DPI shift button, or some people also call it the sniper button. Why? Well, you want a little bit more accuracy when you are zooming in using a scope, so you can quickly press the DPI shift button to have more accuracy, and when you release it, you will go back to the default setting or the previous setting. Okay, next thing we have here is some way to adjust the settings to the surface. Now, in my case, I don't really have a gaming mousepad, so I didn't really change anything, but you can adjust the surface tuning depending on the type of surface you have. And the last thing here is simply again some heat map, as we have seen with the keyboard. I haven't really used that, so I can't really tell you anything about it. Well, that about runs up the different options you have to customize your Logitech G502 Proteus Spectrum gaming mouse using the Logitech gaming software. I have been using the mouse for a few different tasks already, and I quite like it, especially this scroll wheel. As you can see, you have a little button here which you can press to trigger default usage of the scroll wheel, and when you press the little button again here, then you can turn on infinite scrolling, and which is quite handy sometimes, especially when playing games. You can also click to the left and click to the right with the mouse wheel, which can help, for example, in Final Cut Studio to do some video editing. Well, I think we're almost at the end of this review, so it's time for a little recap, some pros and cons. Let's start with the pros. I've been using the mouse now for about a few weeks, and I have been using it for some gaming activities, some day-to-day activities, and I even used it for some video editing activities. And I have to say I quite like the way you can customize the mouse and assign different things to the different buttons. For example, you can set it up for some gaming, but I have also set it up to do some different things while in Final Cut Studio, for example, and I quite like that. The mouse feels sturdy, it's quite nice feel to it, it feels good in your hand, buttons are easily accessible, and everything is working as expected. On the con side, well, I didn't find anything negative about the mouse for now, so I would have to say it's a perfect mouse for day-to-day use and gaming use.